Nothing like a birthday party to remind me I'm just another decorative husband. At least the drinks are free. I stood in the corner of our McMansion's living room, watching my wife Laura hold court like some suburban queen bee. 40 guests milled around our overpriced furniture, sipping champagne that cost more than most people's car payments. Laura had insisted on the best for her 38th birthday bash. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Mark, darling, come meet Alex. Laura's voice cut through the chatter like a knife through butter. She was practically glowing as she gestured toward a guy who looked like he'd stepped off a fitness magazine cover. Tall, muscular, with that cocky smile that screamed, "I sleep with married women for sport." I walked over, plastering on my best fake smile. "Alex, right? Laura's mentioned you." That was putting it mildly. She'd been dropping his name into conversations for months now, always with that little sparkle in her eye. Mark, the famous husband. Alex's handshake was unnecessarily firm, like he was trying to prove something. "Laura tells me you're in real estate. Must be tough in this market." "Someone's got to sell houses to personal trainers," I replied, matching his grip. Laura laughed a bit too loudly. "Alex has been helping me with my fitness goals," she said, running her hand down her side. "He's amazing at working out." Tension. The way she said it made my stomach turn. Ellen, Laura's gossipy friend, giggled from nearby. "Laura's been looking fantastic lately. All that extra exercise." I excused myself and headed to the kitchen, where my old college buddy Ross was already 3 drinks deep. "Jesus, Mark, your wife's not exactly being subtle," he muttered, gesturing toward the living room where Laura was now touching Alex's arm while laughing at something he'd said. "Tell me something I don't know," I said, pouring myself a double whiskey. "Okay, how about this? Half the neighborhood knows she's screwing him. Ellen's been spreading it around like gossip confetti. Apparently your wife's been telling everyone you're boring in bed and that Alex is a beast. The whiskey burned going down, but not as much as the humiliation. Anything else? Sarah asked me to tell you she's in the study. Says it's important." Sarah was Laura's best friend, or used to be. Lately she'd been distant from Laura's inner circle. I found her sitting behind my desk, looking nervous. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "I've been wanting to tell you for weeks, but I didn't know how." "About Laura and the muscle-bound moron? It's worse than you think. They're not just sleeping together, Mark. They're planning something. I heard them talking at the gym last week. Laura wants out of the marriage, but she wants to keep the house, your business contacts, everything. Alex thinks you're a pushover who'll just roll over and take it." My hands clenched into fists. "How long have you known?" 3 months. I'm sorry, Mark. I should have told you sooner. But Laura was my friend, and I thought maybe it would burn out on its own. But then I heard them laughing about you, calling you pathetic, and I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Back in the living room, Laura had gathered everyone around. She was holding a champagne glass, cheeks flushed with excitement and alcohol. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," she announced. "This has been such a special year for me. I've learned so much about myself, about what I really want from life." Her eyes found Alex in the crowd. "I've discovered that sometimes you have to make your own happiness. Sometimes there are new rules waiting for us, and we just have to be brave enough to embrace them." The crowd cheered. Ellen clapped enthusiastically. Alex smirked and raised his beer bottle in a mock toast. That's when something inside me snapped. I walked to the center of the room, my own drink in hand. "You're absolutely right, honey. There are new rules." I raised my glass. "You meant to say your new husband, right?" The room went silent. Laura's face went white, then red. "Mark, what are you?" "I'm announcing our divorce," I said loudly, looking around at all the shocked faces. "Effective immediately. I hope you and Alex will be very happy together in whatever cheap apartment you can afford on a personal trainer's salary." Laura started sputtering, but I was already walking toward Sarah. "Would you like to dance?" I asked, extending my hand. She smiled and took it. As we moved to the center of the room, I could hear the whispers starting, see the phones coming out to record the drama. "You magnificent bastard," Sarah whispered as we swayed to the music. "If you want to burn down your life, bring gasoline to the party," I murmured back. I brought matches. Later, after most of the guests had left and Laura had locked herself in the bedroom, I found her phone on the kitchen counter. She'd left it open to her text messages with Alex. My finger hovered over the screen for just a moment before I started scrolling. The messages were explicit, detailed, and absolutely damning. Plans to meet at hotels, discussions about how to handle Mark when the time came, photos I definitely didn't want to see but screenshot anyway. I forwarded everything to my own phone, then deleted the evidence from her sent folder. Laura might have new rules, but she was about to learn that I'd been writing the playbook all along. The next morning, Laura tried to pretend nothing had happened. She came downstairs in her silk robe, coffee mug in hand, acting like she hadn't just been publicly humiliated in front of half our social circle. "We need to talk about last night," she said, settling into the chair across from me at the breakfast table. "Nothing to talk about. I meant what I said." I didn't look up from my newspaper, though I wasn't really reading it. "You were drunk. You embarrassed me in front of our friends." "Our friends?" I finally looked at her. "You mean the same friends who've been gossiping about your affair for months? The ones who think I'm some pathetic cuckold who doesn't know his wife is screwing her personal trainer?" Laura's coffee mug hit the table harder than necessary. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because I think you've been sleeping with Alex Morrison for 3 months, telling him I'm boring in bed, and planning to divorce me while keeping everything I've worked for. Am I warm?" Her face went through several color changes. "How did you—" "Sarah told me. Turns out your best friend has a conscience, unlike you." "That bitch. I should have known she'd run to you with lies." "Lies?" I pulled out my phone and started reading from her text messages. "I can't wait to feel you inside me again. Mark's working late. Come over at 8. That was last Tuesday, by the way. Want me to keep going?" Laura lunged for my phone, but I was already standing, moving away from the table. "Give me that." "Sorry, sweetheart. These are evidence now. My lawyer's going to love them." She started crying then, the waterworks she always turned on when she wanted to manipulate me. "Mark, please. We can work this out. It was a mistake. I was lonely, and you're always working, and Alex was just there. Save it for someone who gives a shit." I left her sobbing in the kitchen and drove to my office. By 10 a.m., I had appointments scheduled with a divorce attorney and a private investigator. By noon, I had a plan. Sarah met me for lunch at a quiet restaurant across town. She looked nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder. "Laura called me 6 times this morning," she said. "She's furious. She knows I told you." "Good. Let her be angry. Are you willing to help me, or are you going to run back to her?" Sarah leaned forward. "What do you have in mind?" "Complete and total social destruction. I want them both humiliated, broke, and friendless. Think you can handle that?" She smiled for the first time since I'd known her. "Mark, you have no idea how long I've wanted to see Laura get what's coming to her. She's been treating people like garbage for years, thinking she's untouchable because she's pretty and married to a successful man. Count me in." Our first target was Alex. Sarah had been doing her homework, and it turned out the muscle-bound moron had some interesting secrets. He was behind on his rent, owed money to several people, and had been lying about his credentials as a trainer. That afternoon, I paid a visit to his gym. He was in the middle of a session with some soccer mom, showing off as usual. "Alex, good to see you, buddy." I walked right up to him, ignoring his client. "Mark." His jaw tightened. "What are you doing here?" "Just wanted to thank you for taking such good care of my wife, really going above and beyond the call of duty." The soccer mom looked confused. Alex's face was turning red. "I think we should talk privately," he said. "Oh, no need for privacy. I'm sure Mrs. Henderson here would love to know that her trainer specializes in more than just physical fitness. Tell me, Alex, do you offer the same personal attention to all your female clients?" Mrs. Henderson gathered her things quickly and left. Alex stepped closer to me, trying to use his size to intimidate. "You need to back off, Mark. Laura's not happy with you, and she's made her choice." "Has she? Because last I checked, she's still legally married to me. But don't worry, that'll be changing soon, along with a few other things." "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll find out." I left him standing there, confused and angry. Phase 1 was complete. That evening, I put Phase 2 into action. While Alex was at the gym, I paid a visit to his precious red Porsche in the parking lot. I'd stopped by the seafood market on the way over and purchased several pounds of the smelliest shrimp I could find. It took me less than 5 minutes to hide the shrimp in various places throughout his car, under the seats, in the air vents, taped up inside the trunk. By tomorrow morning in the heat, his car would smell like a fishing boat that had been abandoned for a month. I also poured a bag of sugar into his gas tank for good measure. Nothing that would cause permanent damage, just expensive repairs and a lot of inconvenience. The next morning, Sarah called me, barely able to contain her laughter. "You should have seen it, Mark." Alex came storming into the gym, screaming about his car. The smell was so bad they had to open all the doors and windows. He was throwing a complete tantrum, accusing everyone of sabotage. Someone recorded the whole thing and posted it online. "Perfect. What about Laura?" "She's been calling everyone, trying to do damage control from the party. But Ellen's been spreading the story all over town. Laura's becoming the neighborhood scandal." Good. Let them both squirm for a while. But my satisfaction was short-lived. That evening, I received a text from an unknown number. You don't know the half of it. Meet me at the Red Lantern tonight if you want the truth. Turns out the rabbit hole is lined with dirty secrets and secondhand lipstick. I couldn't help but follow. The Red Lantern was the kind of dive bar where people went to disappear. Dim lighting, cheap beer, and bartenders who minded their own business. I found my mysterious contact in a corner booth, a woman in her 30s with bleached blonde hair and tired eyes. "You're Mark?" she asked as I slid into the seat across from her. "Depends who's asking." "Name's Jessica. I used to date Alex." She took a long drag from her cigarette. "Heard through the grapevine that you're having some trouble with him and your wife." "You could say that." "Well, honey, you ain't seen nothing yet." Jessica stubbed out her cigarette and leaned forward. "Alex and your wife aren't just screwing around. They're planning to screw you over completely." "How so?" "Alex owes some bad people money, gambling debts mostly. Laura promised she'd help him pay them off once she got her hands on your assets. But here's the kicker. She's planning to claim you're mentally unstable to get a better settlement." "What?" "She's been documenting everything, taking photos of you drinking, recording conversations where you sound angry or upset. She's even got some doctor friend who's willing to testify that you're having a breakdown." "That's insane. No court would believe that." Jessica laughed bitterly. "Honey, you'd be surprised what a pretty woman with a good lawyer can accomplish, especially when she's got a cop friend helping her out." "Cop friend?" "Detective Heller. He and Laura go way back, if you know what I mean. He's been feeding her information about how to make this whole thing look like your fault." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. This wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Alex is a piece of shit who destroyed my life, and I want to see him burn. Plus, Laura's been spreading rumors about me around town, calling me a crazy ex-girlfriend. Time for some payback." I bought Jessica another drink and got every detail I could. By the time I left the bar, I had a complete picture of just how deep this betrayal went. The next morning, I met Sarah at a coffee shop downtown. She looked pale when I told her what I'd learned. "Jesus, Mark, I knew Laura was vindictive, but this is next level." "There's more. I think you should know. Jessica mentioned that Laura suspects you're helping me. She's planning to cut you out of her life completely." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "Too late for that. I've got some news of my own. I've been recording my conversations with Laura for weeks." "What?" "I started getting suspicious when she began asking me weird questions about you. Your drinking habits, your temper, whether I'd ever seen you act erratically. I realized she was trying to build a case against you, so I started documenting everything." She pulled out her phone and played me a recording. Laura's voice was crystal clear. "Mark's been acting so strange lately. Sometimes I'm actually afraid of him. Thank God I have Alex to protect me." "That lying bitch," I muttered. "It gets better. Listen to this one." Another recording. Laura talking to Ellen about how she planned to take Mark for everything he's worth, and how Alex had connections who could help make sure I ended up with nothing. "Sarah, you're a goddamn saint." "I'm just getting started. Laura's biggest event of the year is coming up, the Children's Hospital Charity Gala. She's been planning it for months, and everyone who matters in this city will be there. What do you say we give them a show they'll never forget?" The gala was being held at the Grand Ballroom downtown. Laura had been working on it for 6 months, and it was supposed to be her crowning achievement as an event planner. 500 guests, including the mayor, several city council members, and most of the city's social elite. Sarah and I spent the next week preparing. She used her access to Laura's computer to get copies of all the event files, including the presentation Laura was planning to show. Meanwhile, I worked with a tech-savvy friend to create our own version. The night of the gala, I arrived in my best tuxedo. Laura looked stunning in a silver dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She was in her element, gliding from group to group, accepting compliments and basking in the attention. Alex was there too, playing the role of supportive friend. He'd cleaned up nicely in a rented tux, though I could tell he was uncomfortable in the fancy surroundings. "Mark?" Laura seemed genuinely surprised to see me. "I didn't think you were coming." "Wouldn't miss it for the world, sweetheart. This is your big night." She looked suspicious, but didn't have time to question me further. The evening's program was starting, and she needed to get ready for her presentation. I found Sarah near the audio-visual booth. She gave me a subtle nod. Everything was in place. Laura took the stage to thunderous applause. She looked radiant under the lights, completely confident and in control. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she began. "This gala represents months of hard work and planning, but it's all been worth it to support such a worthy cause. Tonight, I'd like to share with you a special presentation about the impact your donations will have. She clicked her remote, and the large screen behind her lit up. But instead of her carefully prepared slideshow about the children's hospital, the audience was treated to a different kind of presentation. The first slide showed text messages between Laura and Alex, with their explicit content clearly visible. The second showed photos of them together in compromising positions. The third included voice recordings of Laura talking about her plans to destroy me in the divorce. The ballroom erupted in gasps and murmurs. Laura frantically clicked her remote, but the slides kept advancing, each one more damaging than the last. "What the hell is this?" she screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the crowd's reaction. Alex jumped up from his table and started pushing through the crowd toward the stage, but he didn't make it far before someone accidentally stuck out their foot, sending him crashing into a table full of champagne glasses. The final slide was a simple message. Laura Morrison, not fit to plan a birthday party, let alone a charity event. Laura's boss, the head of the event planning company, stood up from his table with a look of pure fury. He marched to the stage and grabbed the microphone from Laura's trembling hands. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize for this disgraceful display. Laura Morrison is no longer employed by Premier Events, effective immediately." The crowd was in chaos now. Some people were laughing, others looked shocked and scandalized. Camera phones were out everywhere, recording Laura's complete meltdown. Alex finally made it to the stage, covered in champagne and cake frosting. He grabbed Laura's arm and started pulling her toward the exit, but she was too hysterical to walk properly. "This isn't over, Mark," she screamed as Alex dragged her away. "You'll pay for this." I watched them leave, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. But I knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, the local gossip blogs were buzzing with the story. "Society Wife's Scandalous Affair Exposed at Charity Gala" was the headline in the city's largest newspaper. The video had gone viral on social media with thousands of shares and comments. But my satisfaction was interrupted by a visit from Detective Heller. He showed up at my office unannounced, his badge prominently displayed. "Mr. Morrison, we need to talk." "About what, Detective?" "About harassment. Your wife has filed a complaint alleging that you've been stalking her, vandalizing property, and threatening her boyfriend." I leaned back in my chair, completely calm. "That's interesting. Do you have any evidence of these alleged crimes?" "We're investigating." "Well, while you're investigating, you might want to look into Laura's plan to commit perjury in our divorce proceedings. I have recordings of her discussing how to fabricate evidence against me. I also have documentation of property damage she and Alex committed at my home last week." Heller's confident expression faltered slightly. "What property damage?" "Broken windows, graffiti, stolen mail, all caught on my security cameras. Would you like to see the footage?" That wasn't mentioned in her complaint." "I'm sure it wasn't." "Detective, you can't arrest a man for telling the truth. Not yet, anyway." Heller left without another word, and I knew Laura's police protection had just evaporated. If you want to see how deep the rot goes, start peeling back the wallpaper. Just watch out for what crawls out. The fallout from the gala was swift and brutal. By Monday morning, Laura had been fired from her job, dropped by most of her friends, and was facing a social exile that would have made the Amish proud. Alex, meanwhile, had been banned from his gym after the owner saw the viral video and decided he didn't want that kind of publicity associated with his business. But they weren't going down without a fight. I was working late at my office when Sarah called, her voice tight with concern. "Mark, you need to get home, now." "What's wrong?" "Laura and Alex are at your house. They have a moving truck." I drove home like a man possessed, arriving to find my worst fears confirmed. A small U-Haul was parked in my driveway, and I could see figures moving around inside my house with flashlights. I called 911 first, then grabbed the baseball bat I kept in my trunk. But as I approached the house, I realized they weren't stealing my stuff. They were destroying it. I could see Laura through the living room window, systematically smashing picture frames and throwing books off shelves. Alex was in the kitchen, apparently pouring something sticky all over my appliances. The police arrived just as I was about to confront them. 2 patrol cars pulled up, and 4 officers got out with their hands on their weapons. "Sir, step away from the house," one of them called out. "This is my house. They're the ones breaking in." But before anyone could sort out the situation, Laura came running out the front door, tears streaming down her face. "Officers, thank God you're here. My husband has been threatening me all week, and now he's come here with a weapon." She pointed at the baseball bat in my hands. Alex emerged from the house behind her, playing the role of protective boyfriend. "He's been stalking us," Alex said. "We came here to get some of Laura's things, and he showed up acting crazy." I started to protest, but one of the officers held up his hand. "Everyone calm down. Sir, put the bat down." I complied, but I was furious. Officers, this is my house. I have the deed to prove it. These two broke in and are destroying my property." "He's lying," Laura sobbed. "I still live here. We're separated, but I have every right to be in my own home." It took 2 hours and a call to my lawyer to straighten things out. In the end, the police determined that while Laura technically still had legal access to the house, she had no right to destroy property. But by then, the damage was done. My living room looked like a tornado had hit it. They'd poured honey all over my kitchen counters, torn up important documents, and even eliminated my fish by pouring dish soap in the tank. "This is war," I told Sarah as we surveyed the damage. "Then let's give them a war they'll never forget." Our next target was their new living situation. After being evicted from his apartment for non-payment of rent, Alex had moved in with Laura at a cheap extended-stay motel on the outskirts of town. It was a far cry from the luxury they'd been planning to enjoy at my expense. Sarah had been monitoring their social media accounts and discovered they were planning to crash a wedding reception at the country club, an event where many of Laura's former friends would be present. Apparently, they thought they could rehabilitate their image by showing up together, playing the role of a couple in love who'd overcome adversity. "They're delusional if they think anyone's going to welcome them back," Sarah said. "Then let's make sure they get the reception they deserve." The wedding was for the daughter of one of the city's most prominent families. I knew the bride's father from business dealings, and after explaining the situation, he was more than happy to help me ensure that Laura and Alex's appearance would be memorable for all the wrong reasons. We arrived at the country club early and positioned ourselves strategically around the reception area. Sarah had prepared a special surprise. She'd created fake social media accounts and had been spreading rumors all week about Laura and Alex's financial troubles, including some creative stories about unpaid debts and bounce checks. When Laura and Alex finally showed up, they looked like they'd tried their best to appear successful and happy. Laura wore a dress that was probably her last expensive purchase, and Alex had somehow managed to rent another tuxedo. They made their entrance during the cocktail hour, trying to blend in casually with the other guests, but the reaction was immediate and brutal. Conversations stopped mid-sentence as people noticed them. Groups of women who had once been Laura's friends turned their backs and walked away. Men who had tolerated Alex at the gym suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere. Laura tried to approach Ellen, her former best friend, but Ellen literally held up her hand like a stop sign. "Don't," Ellen said loudly enough for others to hear. "I am not associating with someone who would humiliate herself and her family the way you did. Ellen, please, let me explain." "Explain what? How you cheated on your husband? How you planned to steal everything from him? How you lied to all of us for months? There's nothing to explain, Laura. You made your choices." Alex tried to intervene, but Ellen's husband stepped between them. "I think you both should leave," he said firmly. That's when Laura completely lost it. She started screaming about how everyone was being unfair, how they didn't understand the whole story, how Mark had driven her to this. "He's boring. He's cold. He never appreciated me," she shrieked, drawing stares from across the room. Alex tried to calm her down, but she was beyond reason. She grabbed a glass of wine from a nearby table and threw it at Ellen, missing her, but hitting an elderly woman in a very expensive dress. Security was called, and Laura and Alex were escorted out while she continued screaming threats and accusations. The entire scene was captured on multiple phones and would be all over social media within hours. But the evening's entertainment wasn't over yet. As they were being escorted through the parking lot, Alex noticed his car, a beat-up Honda he'd been forced to buy after his Porsche was repossessed. Someone had decorated it with shaving cream and toilet paper and had written "Home Wrecker" across the windshield in washable paint. Alex flew into a rage, screaming about property damage and threatening to call the police. But when he tried to get in the car to drive away, he discovered that someone had also let the air out of all 4 tires. Laura was crying hysterically now, her makeup running down her face in black streaks. Alex was trying to call for a taxi while simultaneously trying to clean the paint off his windshield with his bare hands. I watched the whole scene from the club's entrance, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. But I also knew this was far from over. Laura and Alex were cornered animals now, and cornered animals were dangerous. Sure enough, the next morning brought a new escalation. I woke up to find that someone had thrown a brick through my front window. Attached to it was a note. "This isn't over, asshole. We know where you live." I called the police and filed a report, but I knew they wouldn't be able to do much. However, I had installed additional security cameras after the break-in, and I had clear footage of Alex throwing the brick. When Detective Heller showed up to take my statement, his attitude had changed completely. The viral videos from the wedding had apparently convinced him that Laura wasn't the innocent victim she'd claimed to be. "Mr. Morrison, I owe you an apology," he said. "I was given some misleading information about this situation." "No hard feelings, Detective. We all make mistakes." I've issued a warrant for Alex Morrison's arrest for vandalism and harassment. We'll pick him up today. What about Laura? She wasn't on the security footage, so we can't prove she was involved. But between you and me, I'd be very careful. People like her don't give up easily. He was right. That evening, as I was leaving work, I found Laura waiting by my car in the parking garage. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes were wrinkled, and she had dark circles under her eyes. "We need to talk," she said. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Please, Mark, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We walked to a nearby coffee shop where Laura proceeded to give me the performance of her life. She cried, she apologized, she begged for forgiveness. She claimed that Alex had manipulated her, that she'd never meant for things to go so far, that she still loved me and wanted to save our marriage. "I made a terrible mistake," she sobbed, "but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll do anything." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She looked so broken, so desperate. But then I remembered the text messages, the lies, the plan to destroy me financially and emotionally. "Laura, it's over. We're getting divorced. You're going to get nothing, and you need to accept that and move on with your life." Her tears stopped instantly, replaced by a look of pure hatred. "You bastard. You think you've won. But this isn't over. I'll make you pay for what you've done to me." What I've done to you? Laura, you cheated on me, lied to me, and tried to steal everything I've worked for. All I did was expose the truth." "The truth?" She laughed bitterly. "You want to know the truth? The truth is that I never loved you. I married you for your money and your connections. And I stayed with you because it was convenient. But I'm done pretending now." She stood up, her voice rising. "You think you're so smart, but you have no idea what's coming. Alex and I aren't finished with you yet." She stormed out, leaving me sitting alone with the uncomfortable feeling that the worst was yet to come. That night, I called Sarah and told her about the encounter. "She's planning something," I said. "I can feel it." "Then we better be ready for her." We didn't have to wait long. The next morning, I woke up to find my yard covered in garbage, my mailbox destroyed, and "Cheater" spray-painted across my garage door. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the cat lying on my front porch with a note tied around its neck. "Next time, it won't be a stray." I called the police immediately, but I also called Sarah. "It's time to end this," I told her. "What do you have in mind?" "Something that will destroy them both so completely that they'll never be able to hurt anyone again." The final battle was about to begin. The cat on the porch was the last straw. I'd been willing to play games, to embarrass them publicly, to ruin their reputations, but threatening violence crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Sarah came over immediately after I called her. She took one look at the scene in my yard, and her face went white. "Jesus, Mark, they're completely unhinged." Which is exactly what we're going to use against them. I'd been thinking about this moment for weeks, planning the perfect trap. Laura and Alex had shown me who they really were. Desperate, vindictive, and willing to escalate to violence when their backs were against the wall. Now I was going to give them exactly what they wanted. One final confrontation that would end this once and for all. "Here's what we're going to do," I told Sarah as we cleaned up the mess in my yard. "We're going to let them think they've won." Over the next few days, I played the part of a broken man. I called in sick to work, let my appearance slide, and made sure to be seen around town looking defeated and depressed. Sarah spread word through her remaining social connections that I was having a breakdown, that the stress of the divorce and the public humiliation was getting to me. Meanwhile, I was actually preparing the most elaborate revenge scheme of my life. I knew Laura and Alex were staying at the Sunset Motel on Highway 9, a rundown place that rented rooms by the week to people with nowhere else to go. Sarah had been monitoring their social media accounts and overheard phone conversations, so I knew they were planning something big for Friday night. "They think you're vulnerable now," Sarah reported. "Laura's been telling people that you're drinking heavily and talking about suicide. She's setting up a narrative where whatever they do to you will look justified." "Perfect. Let them think that." Friday afternoon, I made a very public scene at the liquor store, buying several bottles of expensive whiskey and muttering to myself loud enough for other customers to hear. The clerk, who knew me from previous visits, looked concerned. "You okay, Mr. Morrison?" "Just peachy," I slurred, though I was completely sober. "My life's falling apart, but hey, at least I've got good whiskey." Word would get back to Laura within hours. I was counting on it. That evening, I set my trap. I'd spent the week installing additional security equipment around my house, not just cameras, but motion sensors, automated lighting, and a few other surprises. I also had 3 friends positioned around the neighborhood with cameras of their own, ready to document whatever Laura and Alex were planning. At 10 p.m., Sarah called to give me the signal. They just left the motel. Laura's carrying a gas can. I'd expected vandalism, maybe another break-in, but arson was attempted murder. Call the police now, I told her. Tell them there's a domestic disturbance at my address and that you heard threats of violence. 20 minutes later, I saw headlights in my driveway. Laura and Alex got out of his beat-up Honda, moving quietly toward my house. Laura was indeed carrying a red gas can, while Alex had what looked like a crowbar. I was watching from my bedroom window upstairs, completely sober despite the performance I'd put on earlier. My hands were steady as I started recording with my phone. They crept around to the back of the house, where Alex used the crowbar to break open my back door. The alarm system I'd installed immediately started shrieking, and the motion-activated floodlights turned the backyard bright as day. But they were too committed to their plan to back down now. Laura started pouring gasoline around the base of my house, while Alex smashed windows with his crowbar. That's when the police arrived. 3 patrol cars pulled into my driveway with their lights flashing and sirens wailing. Officers jumped out with their weapons drawn, shouting for Laura and Alex to drop what they were holding and get on the ground. Laura tried to run, but she slipped on the wet grass and fell face first into the mud. Alex attempted to scale my back fence, but got tangled in the razor wire I'd had installed after the previous break-ins. Within minutes, they were both in handcuffs, covered in mud, while the officers secured the scene and called the fire department to deal with the gasoline. I came downstairs and walked out to meet the police, playing the role of the traumatized homeowner who'd barely escaped with his life. Officers, thank God you got here in time. I was upstairs sleeping when I heard the alarm. I looked out the window and saw them trying to burn down my house. The lead officer nodded grimly. We've got it all on body camera, sir. Plus your security system recorded everything. These 2 are going away for a long time. Laura was screaming from the back of the police car, claiming that I'd driven her to this, that I'd destroyed her life and left her no choice. Alex was just sitting in his patrol car, staring straight ahead with a look of defeat. But the night wasn't over yet. As the police were finishing their paperwork, Sarah arrived with a local news crew she'd tipped off. The reporter immediately started interviewing neighbors and filming the damage to my house. This is Channel 7 News, reporting live from a domestic terrorism incident in the Riverside neighborhood. Laura Morrison, 38, and Alex Chen, 35, have been arrested for attempted arson and breaking and entering after allegedly trying to burn down the home of Laura's estranged husband. By morning, the story was everywhere. Local news, social media, even a few national outlets picked it up as an example of how divorce disputes could escalate to dangerous extremes. The video footage was damning. Laura and Alex were clearly visible, pouring gasoline and breaking windows, their faces illuminated by the security lights. There was no way to claim this was anything other than attempted murder. At the arraignment, Laura's lawyer tried to argue that she was having a mental breakdown, that the stress of the divorce had pushed her over the edge. Alex's lawyer claimed his client was just trying to help someone he cared about, but the judge wasn't buying it. With multiple felony charges, including attempted arson, breaking and entering, and domestic terrorism, they were both denied bail and remanded to county jail to await trial. I sat in the courtroom watching them being led away in shackles, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. This wasn't how I'd wanted my marriage to end, but Laura had made her choices, and now she was facing the consequences. After the hearing, I met with the prosecutor, a sharp woman in her 40s who'd been following the case closely. Mr. Morrison, I want you to know that we're going to throw the book at them. Attempted arson is a serious felony, especially when it's clearly premeditated. They're looking at 10 to 15 years each. I just want this to be over, I told her. It will be, and given the evidence we have, there's no way they'll avoid conviction. 6 months later, Laura pled guilty to attempted arson, breaking and entering, and harassment. She was sentenced to 12 years in state prison. Alex, who had a prior record, got 15 years. The day of their sentencing, I sat in the courtroom one last time, listening as they each made statements to the judge. Laura was still trying to play the victim, claiming that I'd driven her to desperate measures through emotional abuse and manipulation. But her words rang hollow after months of evidence showing her calculated planning and escalating violence. Alex just apologized and asked for mercy, admitting that he'd made terrible choices and hurt innocent people. When it was over, I walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sunlight, feeling like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Sarah was waiting for me on the courthouse steps. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Free," I said. "Finally free." We walked to my car together, leaving behind the wreckage of my old life and the 2 people who'd tried to destroy me. Laura had been right about one thing. There were new rules now, but she'd never understood that I was the one writing them. 3 years later, I was remarried to Sarah, living in a new house in a different part of town. My business was thriving, my reputation had been restored, and I'd learned to trust again. Sometimes I wondered what Laura and Alex were doing in prison, whether they ever thought about the choices that had led them there. But mostly, I didn't think about them at all. I'd won the war they'd started, not through violence or illegal schemes, but by being smarter, more patient, and more strategic than they were. I'd let them destroy themselves with their own greed and stupidity, and then I'd made sure the whole world could see what they really were. The new rules of ruin were simple. If someone tries to destroy your life, don't just survive. Make sure they never get the chance to hurt anyone else again. And sometimes, the best revenge is just letting people show everyone who they really are.